You know, every dog owner has had that moment. You hear a little sneeze from across the room, you see that wet nose looking a little extra wet, and your mind just starts racing. Is it a cold? Did they get into something? Or is it something I should really be worried about? Well, today we're going to break it all down and figure out what that runny nose is really telling you. And that's really the million-dollar question, isn't it? That one little symptom, a runny nose, could be anything from a simple case of seasonal allergies to a super complex condition that has honestly stumped veterinarians for years. So how do you know? How do you know when to just give them an extra cuddle and when it's actually time to worry? All right, let's start with the basics, the usual suspects. When you see that drippy nose, your brain probably jumps to one of three things: a cold, the flu, or allergies. And yeah, they can look pretty similar at first glance, but the trick is knowing the subtle little differences. Okay, let's play detective. First, check the clock. A dog cold is usually here and gone in about a week, maybe 10 days. But allergies? Oh, those can hang around for weeks, even months. And the cough is a huge tell. A cold often comes with this dry, hacking sound. Canine flu, on the other hand, sounds much wetter, more congested. With allergies, you're not going to hear much coughing at all, but you will see a ton of itching and watery eyes. So if it seems like a pretty mild case, there's actually a lot you can do at home to make your pup feel better. A humidifier can work wonders for their breathing. And if they're not eating, try warming up their food just a little bit. It makes it smell way more irresistible. Oh, and here's a pro tip for allergies. Wiping down their paws after every single walk is a total game changer. But what if it doesn't really fit into any of those boxes? What if it's not quite a cold, not quite the flu, and not quite allergies? Well, there are a couple of other common culprits that can have similar signs, and you're definitely going to want to know how to spot them. First on that list is the infamous kennel cough. The name says it all, right? It spreads like wildfire anywhere dogs hang out together. Think doggy daycare, boarding kennels, even the dog park. It's an infection of their upper airway, and it has one very, very distinct symptom.
And this is it. This is the dead giveaway. A dry, hacking cough that honestly sounds like a goose is honking. It is a sound you will not forget once you hear it. If you hear that honk, kennel cough is almost certainly the problem.
Now, another really weird sound you might hear is something called a reverse sneeze. It can look and sound terrifying. Your dog might suddenly freeze up, stretch their neck out, and start making these loud, snorting, gasping sounds. But here's the thing. As dramatic as it looks, it's almost always just a harmless reflex, kind of like a hiccup, to get some little irritant out of their throat.
So we've talked about all the things that come and go, but what happens when that runny nose just doesn't stop? What if it's been weeks, maybe even months, and nothing you do seems to fix it? This is where the story gets really, really interesting, and where we get into some brand new science.
And this leads us to a much more complicated diagnosis, something called chronic rhinitis. This is the one that's a real headache for everyone, a frustrating condition where that runny nose becomes a permanent fixture in your and your dog's life.
The official name is chronic idiopathic rhinitis. Now, idiopathic is just a fancy medical word that basically means we have no idea what's causing this. For years, vets would rule everything out: tumors, infections, something stuck up there, and they'd still be left with this persistent inflammation and no clear answer. Until now.
Some really groundbreaking new research has finally started to crack this case. Now, I know this slide looks a little intense with all the charts, but the main takeaway is actually pretty simple. Scientists took a deep look at the nasal cells from dogs with this chronic condition and compared them to healthy dogs. And what they found were massive differences on a genetic level. Just how different? Well, in the dogs with chronic rhinitis, they found 117 different genes that just weren't working the way they should. And all of these genes had one thing in common. They were all part of the nose's natural built-in cleaning system. So here's what that actually means. Your dog's nose is lined with these microscopic little hairs called cilia. Think of them like a tiny cleaning crew that's constantly sweeping out all the junk: mucus, dust, germs. In these dogs, the genes that tell that cleaning crew what to do were basically turned off. The crew had pretty much gone on strike. But of course, that just opened up a whole new question. Why? Why was this super important system broken? The researchers had a hunch that the answer wasn't in the dog's DNA itself, but in the community of tiny organisms living inside the nose, the nasal microbiome. And this is where they had their big aha moment. These charts might look like just a bunch of dots and lines, but what they show is an incredibly clear link. They found that certain types of bacteria were showing up right alongside specific genetic problems. It wasn't random. It was a pattern. And here are the two main culprits they pointed to. When they saw an overgrowth of a bacteria called Porphyromonas gingivalis, they also saw the genes for inflammation go haywire. And, get this, when they saw a lot of streptococcus, they saw that the genes for that ciliary cleaning system were broken. They had found their smoking guns.
Okay. Whoa, that was a lot. From a simple sniffle all the way to microbiology. So, what does all of this actually mean for you? Let's boil it all down to a simple, clear action plan. Because the single most important thing is knowing when to call in the professionals.
These right here are the big red flags. Any trouble breathing is an emergency, full stop. And pay attention to the color of the snot. If it's yellow, green, or has blood in it, that's a sign of infection. Also, if your dog is just not themselves, way more tired than usual, won't eat, or if the runny nose just isn't getting better after a week or two, it's time to pick up the phone and call your vet.
So we'll end with this thought. For such a long time, a chronic runny nose in a dog was just this unsolvable mystery. But what this new research is showing us is that the answer might not just be a virus or an allergy, but a delicate, complex imbalance in the microscopic world living inside your dog's nose. And that right there could completely change how we treat these problems in the future.